The Sudan is a country in northeast Africa, bordered by Egypt to the north, Ethiopia to the east, Chad to the west, and Libya to the northwest. It houses 37 million people, making it the third largest country in Africa. The history of Sudan goes back to the time of the Pharaohs and includes the rise of the kingdom of Kush at around 700 BC, which in turn would control Egypt itself for nearly a century. After the fall of the kingdom of Kush, since the 7th century AD, Sudan was settled by Muslim Arabs and saw extensive Islamization and Arabization, with much of its former history lost or erased. The ancient Kush capital was called Meroe in Sudan, given the name by the Aryan king of Persia, Cambyses, son of Cyrus the Great, in honor of his sister who was called by that name. The site of the city of Meroe was marked by more than 200 Nubian pyramids in 3 groups, many of which are in ruins, mostly by looters searching for treasures. So who were these ancient Nubian pyramid builders? Did you notice how I said ancient Nubian as opposed to any modern population one finds there today? The same way that we have Aryan-built pyramids in China, built by the 6-foot 6-inch tall blonde Aryan mummies found near them that predate the arrival of East Asians to the area, places like the Kingdom of Kush or even Ethiopia were established and ruled by an Aryan or Caucasian race of people in antiquity. Now, when I say Aryan, people often think of India, which was also established by Aryans millennia ago, but they fled to places like the New World, becoming some of what we call Native Americans, evident by the swastikas and Caucasoid mummies one finds littered all over, now hidden and covered up by organizations like the Smithsonian Institute, but I'll leave that for another video. I can assure you that Christopher Columbus did not get lost and think he landed in India. When they called Native American Indians, they knew who they were. A 2,000-year-old relief carved with an image of what appears to be a stylishly overweight princess has been discovered in an extremely fragile palace in the ancient city of Meroe in Sudan by archaeologists. It wasn't unusual for queens, sometimes referred to as Candaces, to rule facing down the armies of an expanding Rome. The sandstone relief shows a woman smiling, her hair carefully dressed, and an earring on her left ear. She appears to have a second chin and a bit of fat on her neck, something considered stylish at the time among royal women from Kush. Researchers don't know the identity of the woman being depicted, but based on the artistic style, the relief appears to date back around 2,000 years and shows someone royal, very similar to other images of princesses, but could also have been a queen. Royal women in Kush prefer to be depicted overweight, possibly representing fertility and maternity, but in actuality is still largely considered a mystery. The discovery occurred in 2007 during an archaeological exploration of a royal palace in the city where the stone blocks were reused in antiquity by the palace's builders and were originally from buildings that stood at an even earlier time. Ancient Nubia, known for rich deposits of gold, hosted some of Africa's earliest kingdoms, with massive amounts of slave labor, became quite wealthy, even ruling parts of Egypt for a brief time. But their pharaohs were never of sub-Saharan African descent, despite what is taught by corrupt, Afrocentric Marxist universities, which no longer try to educate people, but to indoctrinate them into a false, politically motivated view of history. While it is true that there are sub-Saharan African mummies, it is also true that ancient pharaohs and nobility like to be buried with their slaves to have servants in the afterlife, oftentimes even mummifying their cats, and we find them buried with their horses, and this could be found in many places.
Every year, the world produces some 500 million tons of iron. The history of this metal goes back thousands of years. Several ancient civilizations learned to manufacture iron, including the Hittites, whose empire thrived in what is now Turkey in around 1600 to 1200 BC. Later, the Assyrians used iron weapons during their invasion of Egypt in the 7th century BC. In the 4th century BC, the manufacture and trade of iron led to the rise of another empire, Kush, which became a powerful trading center located near the modern-day border of Egypt and Sudan in northeast Africa. Much of Kush bordered the Sahara, but the city of Meroe, in the southern part of the country, was dotted with trees. The people of Kush used this timber to fire the furnaces they used to produce iron. In addition, Meroe had a rich supply of iron ore, the mineral from which iron is made. Meroe was also located not far from the Red Sea, which gave Kush good access to the major trading centers further south. In addition to iron, the people of Kush traded gold, jewelry, pottery, and ivory. But just as iron had an impact on the rise of Kush, it also had an effect on its fall. Meroe's economy began to suffer during the 4th century AD. One reason for the decline may have been the loss of forests in Nubia, where trees were harvested to fuel the iron industry. In about AD 350, the neighboring kingdom of Aksum invaded Kush, and the Kush Empire fell. Today, Kush is largely forgotten, but the metal that helped build the empire is still important in all our lives today.
From the 3rd century BC to the 4th century AD, Phoenician rulers of the kingdom of Kush controlled significant territory along the banks of the Nile, ensuring the production of significant quantities of iron, mined in large part by slave labor. The Phoenicians also mined copper in Cyprus, as well as tin in Great Britain, and even mined the best copper in Michigan, USA, which is uniquely mixed with silver, but that will come in a future presentation. So please subscribe if you haven't already. My name is Robert Sepehr. I'm an independent anthropologist. My books are published on Amazon.com. Thank you for sharing this video presentation, and please don't forget to leave me your comment. Until next time.